It is important to understand how the desires affect our life. And these desires are fulfilled by the different instruments. Body, breath means energy, mind, intellect, ego. So fundamentally, we can say that when we say I have a desire, so I have a thought. And that thought is nothing but an object plus I am. I am. Or you can say the I thought, which we claim I am. So, my friend, if the object is not there, thought is not there, then what is left? I thought. So it means how the mind understands me, who am I? So when you see this I thought, we find that we are running our life, which is full of desires. Two things comes up. One is desire fulfillment, and other is self-fulfillment. Can I be happy without anything, any person in the world outside? That is what we explore, understand, realize by the journey of Eastern wisdom, or whatever we say, meditation. Desire fulfillment. Is there a desire fulfillment? Check it. I have a desire to have a cup of coffee. You prepare it, you drink it. The next day again, you have the same desire. So just check it. Does your desire,
understand that.
can your desire be fulfilled? So every day we are taking a cup of coffee and it becomes a habit. So to have a desire fulfillment, the mind says continue to drink coffee. Same thing with the sexual desire, same thing with buying anything or any object outside. Why my desire is not fulfilled today after taking a cup of coffee? Go a little deeper into it. So it reveals that when the mind comes in contact with object, take an example of coffee. Aha, what a great coffee, I feel very good. So that feeling good, liking coffee, is nothing but a sense of pleasure. So the mind, why it creates a habit? Because mind dreams of the same pleasure in the coffee as if the pleasure is present in the coffee. But who says it? Mind or I thought? And that I thought is an ego sense. So understand again, desire fulfillment is first, or we discussed self-fulfillment. So the desire is never fulfilled. Desires are never fulfilled. First thing, it makes it a habit. Second, the mind, due to ignorance, falsely claims the pleasure in the desire. But pleasure is not there. We can analyze and we can easily understand. Not everyone likes coffee. So, because not everyone likes coffee, so hence liking is very important in seeking a pleasure. I don't like, so it doesn't give me pleasure. So the first mind creates that liking, and then we want to possess it, we want to use it so that we can have a pleasure. But because the pleasure is not present in the coffee, so the mind pushes us to make it a habit to falsely claim the pleasure, and after some time we just drink coffee for the sake of habit. We don't take it for the sake of pleasure, because repeated use of coffee or any object, anything in the world, decreases the degree of the pleasure, and the time comes when you don't get a pleasure, but because of the compulsion of the mind. Ask yourself, it is because of the compulsion of the mind, which is a habit we carry forward, and if that is not fulfilled, we get upset. That is how we live our life, unconsciously or habitually with desire. So there is no desire fulfillment. Now when we say this self-fulfillment, self, so we have to be very clear that self has two levels. One is the false self and other is the real self. So in Eastern wisdom we say the real self is pure consciousness, and it has love, wisdom, permanent happiness, truth, and pure awareness as its attributes. And what is the false self? The false self is our personality. What is that personality? You should know it clearly. Personality comes from persona. Persona means mask. Mask means covering over the real self. Real self is a common element in every human being. Every human being is conscious. So there is a consciousness. Without consciousness, how can I be conscious and aware of it? Real self. And the false self is nothing but the personality. And what is personality made up of? Body, mind, energy, intellect, ego, some cherished thoughts that I like, other thoughts that I don't like, with certain feeling, emotions, past experiences, future dreams. All that constitutes the personality. From this personality comes the desire, because this personality is never satisfied. One, and it is seeking, projecting happiness outside, either in a person. That person may be a son, daughter, husband, wife, employee, employer, bus, object. Object may be anything in the world. I like smartwatch, so I must own it. And when I own it, I get a pleasure. After a few days, I forget it. Then who cares? Understand that part is very important. So now we don't know anything about the real self, or we know a little bit. When you practice meditation, we experience the calm and the peace. So there is a desire for meditation, but in that desire there is no object. And if there is an object, that object is real self. It is not outside. So when I experience that calmness and peace, it is coming from inside. It is independent of anything outside. So it is the first element of the self-fulfillment. If without doing anything, in the morning, I experience the sense of calmness and the peace on a given day. For example, I did nothing. Very good, I did nothing. And I'm calm. From where that calmness has come? From where that peace has come? Even there is no thought. Even there is no desire of any object. Can I explore deeper and deeper and deeper to find out from where this peace and happiness is coming? That is the journey of self-fulfillment. So that journey of self-fulfillment, you say it is known as sadhana. Sadhana, normally we say that we have, it means simply the practice, when we practice meditation and other stuff. But in a real sense, sadhana means moving away from what is not desired to reach to that permanent happiness. To maintain calm and the peace, anger is not required. So you go away from the anger, and what you need to do to have that harmony in the family? To live, to speak, and to act, and to think, with reference to the love. So you approach near to that love, and you go too far from that anger. We don't need anger medicine. That is the meaning of the sadhana. So there are many ways to reach to that journey. So once there is a self-fulfillment, what happens? There is a natural way in your personality. There is a natural way to maintain and keep the harmony in the family, in your professional life, in your social life. There is a natural tendency oozing out of you. That is the journey we are undertaking. So that journey has basically 9 steps. Other masters say there are 15 steps, there are 5 steps, but for the sake of understanding, I classified into 9 steps. You need to remember that. You need to know that. You need to recall. Briefly, let us pick up all the 9 steps. The first step, I say, there is a default journey of life. We need to understand what is this default journey of life. Once we understand, that becomes our departure point. What do you mean the departure point? From the stress and the suffering. Then we should also know what exactly is the arrival point. I've just explained personality and the existence, means the false self and the real self. So you can say the departure point is the false self in one way, and the arrival point is the real self. So you leave the false self, those elements which causes stress, duality, conflict, anger and anxiety, and you move near, approach near to the real self, we can say. So we must understand the default journey of life, how I'm living. That is what the default journey. Am I fully aware? Do I know what I like and what is pleasant? Do I pursue what I like and what is pleasant? Or am I living my life based on clarity of what is right and good? Same thing, the departure point in by the Buddha. They are the four noble truths. What is suffering? What is the cause of the suffering? Is there a state absence of suffering? And is there a way? Is there a method? So that method comes as eightfold path. So 8 plus 4 becomes 12. Plus there are sub-steps. So that is what I have classified in a simple way. There are 9 major steps. So we are understanding today briefly. So the first step is the departure point, default journey of life. There is a departure point and there is a right. What is the departure point actually? That causes me the stress, duality, anxiety, that keeps my habit intact. When I realize that I'm heavily conditioned culturally, socially, I have to get rid of it to live my life, my friend, at that age. I have been living the same way days after days, weeks after weeks, months after months, years after years, without any change, and expecting a different result. See that? So I must change. Before change, I must know what is the default journey of life. There are other elements in the first step also, that I should, once I realize that the way I'm living with the desires, with the instruments, which is causing suffering in my life, and I'm seeking self-fulfillment, there are some, some or few traits that we need to inherit. Like driving a car, we need driving skills and the rules of the road. So we should know the fundamentals by which we can treat the path and some skills. And that skills is known as sadhan chatushtaya. Viveka is first. What is Viveka? That at every moment I am able to separate real from the unreal inside my head, which I normally say it is a knowledge practice. What is knowledge practice? Do you know sky is blue? No, it is not. Who knows it? Knowledge practice. Knowledge happens. I am the body? No, I am not the body. Where it happens? Do you need to do anything outside physically? No. I need to be aware and I should know. Viveka, clarity. Second thing that we should know, the more and more we practice Viveka, we realize that I have to move away. I'm moving away, not realize. The more you practice Viveka, the more you find that you are moving away from what is not desired, and you are going near to what is desired, known as dispassion. Then we need to have a 6 treasures. Do you know conscious rest and relaxation of the mind so that your mind is 100% available to you? Can you withdraw your mind? Can you withdraw your sense organs instantly with awareness, not by force? When those sense organs are engaged, carried away by the different objects of the sense organs. Why? Because it strips our awareness. We cannot understand clearly. So we are still continuing with the first step. Under the default journey of the life, we should know the departure point. We should be very clear about the arrival point. And so simple departure point from the desire fulfillment to the self-fulfillment. And we have understood the personality and existence. But we need some rules of the game. So that rules of the game is Viveka, means discernment. It's a long journey. No, it is a journey here and now. And you can live into that state. Dispassion is a sense of, you can say a sense of detachment that is causing the trouble, and attachment that will lead me to self-fulfillment. That is why you are inviting me. That is why you asked me to talk and give you the practice. So you have that intent, and followed by the say conscious relaxation, enhanced level of awareness by which you can withdraw your sense organs from the objects that is causing the liking, because that liking will lead to the pleasure, and we have already understood the pleasure is short-lived, and when the pleasure is not present in the object. And the sense of, then comes the uparati, no longer interested in any conditioning in which we have been living our life. That is what the default journey we understand. And then we need to do some steps, some practices, some understanding by which we can master the mind. Working on the mind or mind working on us. So we clearly understand. It will take long time, but we understand it clearly. And if there is something needful, we do it. You are in a party. Now you have realized that you should be mindful in speaking. The thought inside is pushing you out. Let me say something. Let me criticize. Let me disagree. And you withdraw yourself. One example. On the journey we will understand that how to live our personal, professional, social life outside in harmony and inside in awakening. So once, briefly I'm talking today, so once we have a clarity of this understanding of the default journey of the life, then mind is clear, calm, and the mind wants to know what are those principles. So second step is Shravanam. I do not know the principles, I should know the principles. You have already done a lot of practices. And I have explained a lot of principles or just in a scattered way, here and there, plus some other principles I did not discuss about it. So now we will follow the journey systematically in an organized manner. So we will pick up one principle or the other, we will know it, we will understand, we will know it. Here are the principles that takes my life from the desire fulfillment to the self-fulfillment. And you simply know it. The second step is that, do I know it? Do I really know it as it is? Yes. Shravanam. Why it is so important? We have already known the principles by which the desire fulfillment works. Let me work maybe 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and going to the work gives me the stress. I'm telling you an example. And that stress, I have earned the money. Now with that money, I have to buy those things by which I can fulfill my desire to get the pleasure. You see the entire journey? First, there is a sense of excitement in the stress in doing the job, then getting the money, then using that money to buy a thing which gives me pleasure, and then I'm buying the thing, receiving the pleasure. Pleasure remains for a few minutes and it is gone. So we have to repeat pleasure. We go back to the first step. So in the second step, we understand those principles by which we can discover the permanent state of peace and happiness. But then comes the third step. The third step, I do not understand, and let me understand it. So we understand clearly where we are going, how we are going. We remove all the doubts about that principle. You know, when you start driving, you know the pedal and the brake and so excuse me. Then steering, you check the wheels. So that is the third step. We don't believe the principles that we know in the second step. We understand it. Why we understand it? First thing, to remove all the doubts. Second, clarity, conviction. So what happens when we have a conviction on those principles? We are inspired to follow that path. So it is not that I'm a motivational speaker, I will inspire you. That is what people think about it. No. Once you understand the path is real, path is true, the path is right, your intellect inspires you to follow that path. That inspiration brings the knowledge from the head to the heart. And when it inspires you, the fourth step comes. That inspiration with a clarity and a conviction in the head and charged with the emotion and the love in the heart pushes you to act. So the fourth step is Nididhyasan. I do not experience, so let me practice and experience it. Let me practice and experience it. It is the Google that assistant that says I don't understand. We don't understand too. So once we have followed the 4 steps, in the 4th step we get a taste of what meditation is. There is a total clarity. You can self-educate yourself, but without first 3 steps, we cannot move into that step of meditation. But we have been doing a lot of practices of meditation, so I will pick one of them and I will guide you and customize and personalize you as we continue our journey. So in the fifth step, your mind settles that here is the way I have to live. I have to keep my mind in a state where I can live in peace and happiness. But that is the deeper state. Further deeper, you go deeper inside. You become aware, or you are aware of the real self that manifests in truth, in peace, in harmony, in happiness and love. And you come out, you allow that peace and happiness to manifest in day-to-day life, in your personal, professional, social, and family life. I'm not using those terms. Those in the fifth and the sixth, they are known as Savikalpa and the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So what happens in the seventh step? A pretty deeper state. You experience a sense of freedom. That freedom. What is that freedom? You don't experience a sense of limitedness. The body limits us. I am here. I am not there where you are sitting. So limitedness. The same thing, the mind also feels the limitedness. These limitedness causes the bondage and the suffering. So we experience that common element, pure consciousness or the real self is all pervading. And I am, because I am the real self. I am not the body now, hence I am not limited. And then in the seventh, eighth step, you experience, you still communicate with the master, but now you are the master. You are the master of the mind. You are the master of your life. So, your communication, your action, your life completely changes. And the last step I say, it is the joy of conscious living. Joy of conscious living. Returning again to the first step, it is extremely challenging to start the journey. But once that default journey is clearly understood, as you have understood, the journey becomes easy. Couple of points you can understand. We pass through waking, sleeping, dreaming states almost every day. The waking state where we think, speak, act. Dreaming state we dream. And the sleeping state is totally unconscious state, we do nothing. So in the waking state we are living our personal, professional, social lives. Clear? So we started with the three states, sleep, dream and waking state. And then we realize, we understand in the waking state, we live our personal, professional, social life. And from there, the lot of stress comes. Now, see that our personal, professional, social life is mostly guided by the habits of likes and dislikes, pain and the pleasure, achievement, failure, profit, loss, etc., etc. We are going slowly. So there are some desires fulfilled in my life, and there are other desires not fulfilled in my life. You know, we are examining one day in our life. So in one day, we pass through the three states. Sleep, okay, we have understood. Dream, we have understood. The waking state defines our personal, professional, social life. Clear? So we are raising our awareness. So in that waking state, that is mostly guided by habits, likes, dislikes, pain, pleasure. That is achievement, profit, loss, failure. So there are some desires fulfilled every day, and thus other desires are not fulfilled. And other desires which are not fulfilled, that has caused the pain, we recall and remind. And during the day, sometime we have those desires and craving and the security concern and the fears and the anxiety. So this is what is happening every day. Every day. Second day, you may have some desire which causes the anxiety, and other desires which are fulfilled that gives you the pleasure. Still other desire gives you the pain. This is what we say the default journey of life. Second part, second point of understanding. You have to think again and again in your mind. Am I living with the same habits, with the same, more or less the same thoughts and ideas that aims at desire fulfillment, but I am expecting a different result. I am seeking a permanent happiness, but doing the same thing again and again, which is not possible. Am I doing the same thing? Today I woke up in the morning. Ask yourself, my friend. If you don't ask, nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to change. So we want to break this default journey of life, but by understanding, not by force. If you do it by force, it will blast. The mind will return with a greater force. So what is our realization? The conditioned life is habitual and mechanical. Don't we see that? We are living day by day, weeks after weeks, months after months, years after years, same life. After 20 years, I did a blunder 20 years back. Why the mind should repeat it? Why the mind has not changed? Because we are living a default journey of life. So that default journey of the life, we should go and little understand why it happens. Because we are dictated, governed by the unconscious operation of the nature, the way the animals are programmed. So we follow the same programming, because when we say we are evolved from the animal mind, and all the animals are programmed, they have a season for the sex, they have a season for, it's conditioned, it is programmed like a computer programming. Even they have a consciousness, animal consciousness, and still, unlike computer, they don't have a consciousness, it is programmed. But we have a consciousness, we have an intellect, we can make a choice, we can change this programming. So our masters are attacking our intellect. Understand this. Can you reprogram? Yes. So animal kingdom in Eastern wisdom is known as Pashu. It is a Sanskrit word. So that Sanskrit word literally means prison, imprisoned, bondage. Why they have named it like this? That those animals are imprisoned or programmed by the four animal instincts, and they continue to live with that. So we have to become aware. What are those thoughts and ideas? What are those thoughts and ideas and actions is causing me the anxiety again and again? Again and again it is being repeated. I have to break that circle. I have to understand that. In your life, with yourself, with your son, with your daughter, with any person outside, with objects, so that I may feel a sense of freedom if I am not even thinking about it. Mind is not craving for it. Default journey, we have to understand it clearly. Once we understand it clearly, then there is no limit to our success or to permanent peace and happiness. So we have understood animals live by default habit, and because of the animal, now we see that is it possible to expect different results by the same routine, thoughts, actions? Answer is no. So what should we do? We should realize, we should become aware, more and more become aware, and tell your mind that nothing will happen if you continue your habit in expecting a different result. So our master says we need a right knowledge of the departure point and the arrival point. And that I made it clear. Departure point, where there is a desire fulfillment, understand it. Where there is an anxiety, duality, and a conflict in the mind, understand it. Desire fulfillment to self-fulfillment. So we should reinforce. You start thinking, for how many years you have been drinking coffee? Maybe 5 years. Just take an example, 5 years. So every day maybe 1 cup of tea. 365 multiplies by 20 years, almost 2000 days. Just example. Someday you did not drink it. So 2000 cups of coffee. Coffee gives you pleasure. Just an example. You can apply this to any other pleasure-seeking object. So for 20 years, for almost 2000 days, you have drunk coffee. Coffee gives me pleasure. So just take it. 1 day of drinking 1 cup of coffee gives you 1 unit of pleasure. So you have drank coffee for 2000 days. So you have 2000 units of pleasure. Mathematical calculation. And my math calculation is okay? Right. So you have 2000 units of pleasure. Where is that 2000 units of pleasure in you? You don't have any unit of pleasure in you. See that pleasure only comes when the mind comes in contact with that object which it likes. Contact is gone, the pleasure is gone. So all those 2000 units of pleasure is not there with you. No pleasure remains with us. That is another way to understand. So when we contemplate, drink coffee, don't change anything outside. It's very important. Because when you start changing from outside, the mind inside will blast, will react, will start blame and complain. Don't do that. First inside. So inside we are understanding through the where that 2000 units of pleasure is gone. That's not there in me. Not in me. Then why you go for it? So then I realize that we get pleasure only when the mind is in contact with that object or a person we like. Now the person we like is crazy, but I get pleasure. So what is going to happen? That is what happens in our personal, professional, and social life. We do not try to understand it. So the pleasure is short-lived. Pleasure does not continue. Understanding is very important, my friend. So again, you can link it with the desire fulfillment and the self-fulfillment. So once we clearly understand, oh, this is what makes my life miserable, so that now the next question comes, is it possible to remove the sufferings from the life? That is one question. Is it possible to remove the sufferings from the world? So let us take an example of the world also. Our master says, my master used to say, this world does not contain suffering, but the world itself is suffering. What that means? You perform any action in this world to the best of your ability, to the greatest of your intention, we get results in pairs. What are those pairs? Pain and pleasure, profit and loss, victory and defeat, sorrow and happiness. This world is like this. You have a right intention. You go to your son. You express with that right intention, my son, why don't you live like this? That will help you to live in peace and happiness. And the son says, why you interfere in my life? You have a right intention. You know your son is not doing good, not following the right path, and you say it with the right intention. You see, the world always has a result in pairs of opposites. Then you come home and you start thinking, I had a right intention, I expressed it calmly, and still my son does not understand. Now I am hurt, now I am in anxiety. The world offers the results in pairs of opposites. That is one way to understand. So why should I worry? The person may not know your right intention. So we will learn how to live our life with the right intention, with the clarity of the purpose, and save ourselves from any hurt, insult, and anxiety that is coming from the world. We are going to learn once we start those 50 steps. So we are understanding the first part, the fourth journey of the life. So another part is that we should once it is clear that self-fulfillment contains the permanent happiness, love, wisdom, then we should keep our mind engaged with these thoughts. Object, smartphone, I'm using it, let me use it. I have the resources, let me buy it. But at the same time, I should always remind myself that the happiness is within me, love is within me, and I'm going to change my life by the 40 steps that we are going to cover step by step. And we will see how we can implement and use those steps in our life to make our life, entire life, a celebration. The last point that I want to cover today, there are 3 points that we need to understand. Awakening, realization, and transformation. What is awakening? We understand what is waking up. We wake up in the morning, and every day you have been waking up for the last 40, 50 years of your life. You wake up to the same world with the habits, with the same anxiety and the stress and the duality and the pleasure. But when you awaken by this journey, you wake up to the new world. Where? You wake up to the new world inside. Your perception has changed completely. You have a living spark presence of the pure consciousness within. That is what we see in awakening. And when you continue to grow that presence, you experience that your whole life is changing. The body, the mind, the intellect, it's the way that it perceives the things starts changing. That is what we see, the realization. In a very limited sense, I'm explaining. Once we continue to treat the path, we'll go deeper and we'll understand in a different perspective. And what is the transformation? So once you have that presence which is awakened, it is growing daily at every moment, and it is helping you to get away from the anxiety and the stress, duality, and a conflict. The transformation means that we have stored trillions of impressions in our life. That triggers the mind and causes the stress and the suffering will also get transformed. To know peace is good. No peace, yeah? Everyone says peace is good. And then to understand peace and practice peace, practice anything that gives me that peace is much better than to know the peace. You know? To know it, to live it. There's a big difference. So to know it clearly, to live it by regular practice, and what is the transformation I'm pointing out? To be the peace. Now you wake up in the morning and you say that you are an epitome of peace. You know it. You realize it. So all the elements come into the same thing: awakening, realization, and transformation. So the next week we will do the practice based on what we have understood today. so that you can continue that practice for a week or so to experience the change. And that is the message you can contemplate. We will do it with all the clarity. You see the departure and the arrival point. Asato ma satgamaya. From the false to the truth. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Moving from ignorance to wisdom. Moving from ignorance to wisdom, and moving from mortality to immortality. Every day you pick up the points by which there is a default journey of life living habitually, and write to me. Oh, these are the points I have discovered. I have understood. I do it by default. I have been doing it for years and years and projecting happiness there. So once you do that, the life becomes beautiful.